So please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Yasuhiro Katagiri, Director of the National Institute of Advanced Industrial Science and Technology. Alfred Taudes, Professor at Vienna University of Economics and Business. And Suzui, Managing Director of Godot GmbH and co-founder and CTO of Godot Inc. Welcome, Clemens. It's again your turn.
Yeah, thank you, Ina, and hello. Long time no see. And also thanks, panelists, for coming. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Yeah, some of you might wonder how come I would say you have a sort of Japan-leaning panel here, because obviously, we have two participants from Japan joining us, but then you have Professor Taudes, who has been, let's say, doing research collaborations with Japan for as long as I read newspapers, I think. We also met because we had one of these collaborations. And myself, I also spent 7 years in Japan. But the reason is there is the upcoming Expo next year. And when we started to prepare for this event, the preparation started already 1 year ago. We said we also want to be this one part of the road to the Expo, and what would be better than to talk about the two AI ecosystems and commercializations at the example of our two countries, Japan and Austria. So without further ado, I would like each of you maybe a very brief opening statement, who you are and what your company is doing. So I would start with Suzui-san.
Yep. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Go. I am a co-founder and CTO of Godot Inc., based in Kobe, Japan. And also, I am a managing director of Viennese subsidiary here in Vienna. And our company develops a behavioral intelligence platform to support our enterprise client or public agency clients improve their customer success rate or customer satisfaction rate with AI and behavior sciences. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my company is a university, Vienna University of Economics and Business, but I'm also a visiting professor in Kobe, as we found before. It's great to be here. What I'm trying to do as a professor is to really make the best effort to bring all the research that we are doing and our clever students to the market and help startups flourish, because I think the first talk of Sony already showed really that we have to collaborate very deeply to be fast enough to bring this innovation down to earth.
Good. And Katagiri-sama.
Good afternoon. I'm Yasu Katagiri from Japan. I'm a director of AI Research Center of National Institute of Advanced Industrial Science and Technology, which is a governmental research institute. We are a research institute and also governmental, so focusing on research, but also since the advent of ChatGPT, this foundation model is a big topic in Japan, as long as AI is concerned. So we are collaborating with lots of governmental and private sectors to how to develop those technology and bring those technology into societies. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, arigatou gozaimasu. Good. For the first round of questions, I would like to start with Taudes-san. We talked a lot about, or let's say in your intro statements, you already mentioned each of you, let's say the commercialization of ideas, and it would be interesting to hear from you what can universities do to accelerate the commercialization of ideas, and also where do you see, let's say, the stop, let's say, where does the activities that the university can set have to stop, and where somebody else has to pick it up, like a governmental organization, like a spin-out center, and so on?
I think the biggest things university can do is break down walls. Break down walls with industry, break down walls between basic research and applied research, and break down walls between disciplines. When I was a young professor, people who had contacts with industry were not so well cherished by the colleagues, because the professor has to look at pure science. Of course, a lot of things have changed, right? Now we have special fundings for university spin-outs. We have accelerator centers, but if you compare it to the US, it's still not intensive enough. We have to do more. So basically, for every research seminar, there should be people there who already think about commercialization, because the time from the basic research to the market is shrinking incredibly, and the less walls you have, the better it is. Also in Austria, in our research funding scheme, we basically have basic research, where the output are papers, and we have applied research where you collaborate with companies. The problem is, if you have really disruptive innovations like ChatGPT, you don't find companies locally, because they're built for all the technologies. And you have to do the basic research and already build new companies. And this does not fit in this typical orderly world of traditional research. And of course, you can be a very good mathematician, but then suddenly, if you want to commercialize your idea, you also need some guys who are really good in marketing. And AI innovation, of course, always crosses boundaries. You have to bring together the good AI researchers and people who really understand the problem. Plus, industry who has the data. And they have to be together. So we really have to rethink all our traditional ways of doing it. Of course, a university also has to do the real job, good teaching and good research. And for that, of course, we need support units that help us. But they should not be isolated. Basically, for each professor you hire, you shouldn't only look about how good are the papers that he or she has written, but also do they have an entrepreneurial spirit? And this should be part of the work. And when I visit my friends at MIT, for them this is totally natural. And here we still have a long way to go.
Okay, I see time for an audience question. Who of you is familiar with the initiative Spin-off Austria? Okay, it's bigger than zero, but only one hand bigger than zero.
So we still have a long way to go.
Yeah, no, this was even, I think it was launched 3 years ago, if I'm correct, 2021. It even had the backing of the president, Mr. van der Bellen, and all the involved ministries, so to speak. Maybe a very brief follow-up just to you, Taudes-san. Did you feel any tailwind from this activity or any windfall, or did it not really make a difference in the work you're doing?
Well, so far it didn't really made any difference in what we are doing. But for sure, I mean, innovation is something that you cannot really plan. So just having funding and say, oh, because funding there, I do this now, this is of course not a good idea. But of course, when you have a good idea, it helps. But you also, of course, the researchers must know that it exists and must have an incentive to do it.
Thank you very much. Now, next, Katagiri-san. You mentioned in your intro statement the collaboration between research and private companies. Please, could you elaborate a little bit how the cooperation model looks like? Like, is this on a project base, or is it like in Oxford where you donate, let's say, a professorship and then for 3 years you look what's happening? Plus, as a follow-up, also, how do spin-outs eventually work?
You know, since the advent of ChatGPT, this large language models or foundation models, that training of those models requires huge computational infrastructures. And the Japanese government decided to provide big supercomputers, create supercomputers. So I think that kind of computational infrastructure and data infrastructure is essential in these days of AI research. So public sectors work on that, or also private cloud providers are working on that. And also, I would like to mention a government initiative program called GENIAC. That's Ministry of Industry, Trade and METI, export, trade, and industry had started a program in which they create financial support for LLM development. And it's open to academia and industry and everyone. And the assumption is they are supposed to use those computational infrastructure to train foundation models. It's kind of a catch-up of a big tech company in US have been working on, and also even Japanese government obviously can't provide a big fund compared with US big companies. But we need to at least have the technology, base technology, to develop those foundation models. And once those foundation models can be developed, or the technology or the know-how of developing foundation models is shared with lots of people, then there's this new stage will open in which each private sectors can work on that foundation models to develop their own applications. And that's the kind of way we have been working recently. And I would like to emphasize, not exactly spawn the startup, but we also emphasize the importance of community development, even though private sectors have obviously intellectual property concerns, and they would like to hide their own stuff from other companies. But we try to have closer relationship and find a good balance in sharing information or knowledge in developing foundation models. And that's the kind of thing we have right now that's happening in Japan.
Thank you very much. Maybe one brief follow-up question, because you mentioned a couple of times the compute infrastructure, and this is something the European Commission has been thinking about for a long time. And so there was the public-private partnership formed called EuroCC. And this means in each EU member state there's now, as a startup, or let's say as a non-research entity, you can try to train your models there. I must say, from own experience, the people there are very helpful and it works. But from a scale perspective, it works if 10 companies want to do this. Our company, for example, is 20 people. It would not work if 100 companies would like to do this, or 200. So how large is this in Japan, or how easy is it to apply for it if I would like to train a model on this compute infrastructure?
The computational infrastructure is scarce if you think about the number of people who want to work on that. The program GENIAC I mentioned, they had a competitive program, so everybody can submit their proposals, and there's a committee that evaluates those proposals, and only a restricted number of companies or entities are allowed to work on that initially. And I would mention the initial phase, the government chose 10 organizations, and out of 10, 7 were actually startup companies, and 2 were academia, and 1 is a Japanese established telecommunication company. So it's rather, the result-wise, it's helped encourage startup companies to work on that. I'm not sure whether it's completely fair or not, but that's what we have been, our Japanese government have been working on right now.
Yeah, with a rising number, you need a dedicated process to steer this.
Yeah.
Actually, I was a part of GENIAC program personally. So through that project, I joined as a one developer to train large language model from scratch. So actually, I learned from the how to develop large language models from a GENIAC program. So yeah, for me it works. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, staying with you for the moment. Now switching, let's say, from the research side to the startup side, because you not just have a startup, You even have a GmbH, as is written here, so you actually incorporated also in Austria.
Yeah.
But could you tell a little bit about your startup story from, let's say, academic research to spin out? How did the process work? How, let's say, what would need to be improved for people that want to have a similar path in the future?
Okay. Actually, like we use tons of like scientific result from behavior sciences and cognitive sciences, but and also like one of our co-founder is like from the behavior science academia, but we are not like spin out from the university, but we are heavily focused on like research. So one thing we needed to very care about is data quality. So in the research, we always have to pay attention to experiment design to collect high quality data to validate our research result is great or valid. But in reality, if we just go out from the research lab or experiment design, the data quality is basically uncontrollable. Because like the data input is not from the experiment design, data comes from the each individual, our potential customer or stakeholders. So the data quality at the lab or experiment design and the real field is sometimes like there's a gap sometimes. I mean, it depends on like what kind of like industry are you in for AI. For example, like we are using more kind of like social science side. So that's why like data quality control is very critical thing we have to care about. Because if just imagine like if training data is great, but the real data from the field is not that good, so the model doesn't work. So that's why like we have to care about the kind of data quality stuff. So if you are now working on that kind of thing, first of all, I recommend you to try to get the data from your potential customer by doing some kind of like simulating your product. Then you have to compare what is the difference between the data you collected at experiment design or research lab and also from the real field. And if there is a huge gap, you may have to pay attention to, or you may have to take additional some kind of like action to fill in the gap. So that is the one thing. And I have another point is sometimes like because I'm also like an engineer, so I sometimes like fall in love into what I build. But for startup perspective, we have to fall in love with the issue we're going to work on, because the most like the dominant reason the startup fails is developing or building some product anyone doesn't want. So that's why like we have to fall in love with the issue. But at the same time, as an engineer, we have to find a well-balanced point between the technology we're going to build, like innovative technology we're going to build, and also the true needs from the individual. Especially, we have to find an individual whose hair's on fire because he needs this. He or she has an issue, and he or she might need your innovative product. So that's two things. Yeah.
Thank you. This is to avoid the solution in search of a problem. Great. Thank you. So next, Taudes-san, it's your turn again. Because the last time we met actually was when? It was around March, and you were then planning to meet Katagiri-san in Japan and to have a closer research collaboration from the Austrian side and the Japanese side. So what do you think is, let's say, the added value of this type of academia networks when it comes to the commercialization of ideas?
Yeah, academic networks are very important because knowledge is created when you exchange it. But I think especially in the case of Japan and Austria, there are a lot of commonalities and complementarities that we could use. And the easiest synergy, for example, is Japan has cool startups, like this young man to my right side, yeah? And he's already in Austria. And of course, Austria has cool startups, and they would have a 120 million market in Japan. Of course, the markets are different and the culture is different, but both countries are also open to the other side. Yeah? Many young students I know, they are a fan of manga. Yeah? And they like this kind of Japanese things. And of course, Japanese young people always cherish Austrian things. Of course, in music, if you look at the Austrian pavilion, and of course, this is change is very important. And also international teams who bring in different perspectives in these things. So it's not the sum of both. Of course, it has a multiplier, and also the research traditions are quite different. For example, in management, Japan has their own theory from Nonaka, the knowledge-creating companies, which I think fits very good to AI. And this is typically not so well understood in Europe. And if we mix both these research styles and the cultures, and of course integrate the markets, we both can do a lot. And let's be clear, we have a US dominance. And Austria and Japan, if they want to succeed and have their own niches, they have to collaborate. We still are very good in industrial applications. We have Industry 4.0, we have robots in Japan. We have their own rich cultures. We have our own languages. We have strict data protection laws. A lot of things that unite us. And if we join forces, we can compete with the others in our own way.
This is the perfect question to address to you, Katagiri-san, because both of you, I think you set up this whole collaboration. Oh my God, it's autonomous card. And please, could you share your experience from the Japanese side and also with, let's say, how you deal with international research networks, and how do you think, what is the added value for the participants from the Japanese side? Do you think that does it go in the direction of more internationalization, like with Suzui-san, or do you see more international researchers coming to Japan and then, let's say, incorporating their company in Shibuya, for example?
I think there's no right way to do that kind of collaborations. There should be lots of different ways. But in terms of research, there's two things. It's just this creation of networks of people who share common research interest, and also how to get funding. So those two are the greatest issues, and those two have to go hand in hand. So I think that's the issue. And I think Japan is internationalizing quite rapidly, and particularly young people are quite eager to work, as he shows. Young people, Japanese, are quite eager to work in international setting. So I don't think that's a problem. And also, in terms of industry, university collaboration, within this GENIAC program I mentioned, one academia university professor is also famous in his work in entrepreneurship program. So they use the money GENIAC programs provided to mingle with his activity of entrepreneurship. So they set up a huge number of people participating in LLM development and in competitive style, and that eventually works for two purposes: just raise the level of technology level of lots of people in terms of education of LLM development, or in more general AI technology, and also lots of people who participated in are quite eager to start companies, at least willingly, at the real level. So we will see how that turns out. So there are lots of, and they are quite eager to go international. I'm not sure how many non-Japanese participate in that program, but I think, as I said, there are lots of avenues to expand on research collaboration using internationally.
And maybe one small follow-up question, because the government made some measures in 2021, the Japanese government, like, let's say, asking the state-owned pension fund to invest a certain percentage in venture capital and so on. And I remember reading an article that was in 2022 in The Economist, where they wrote about the startup boom in Japan, where you were, let's say, relatively the number one in the G20 with the highest, let's say, year-over-year increase of new startup formations. So could you tell a little bit which measures did the Japanese government set during COVID so that you now have this startup boom?
I have no idea, sorry.
Okay, because you're in the let's say, I see, in the R&D area. Good. No worries. Because the pension fund is a very big thing.
Yeah.
Good. Coming to you, Suzui-san. What was the driving force for your company to actually come to Austria out of all places and immediately, let's say, tackle the European market?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, because we use AI a lot, so sometimes people say, why not US and why not UK? But because I personally, I was also I'm an engineer but trainer at the US, like Silicon Valley area. Then I know that there are many information on the web. And if we want to focus on just only AI purely, I can get tons of information and the social mix experience online, especially after the COVID-19. So we consider what we have to find to innovate AI itself, not just algorithmic, not just mathematical breakthrough. Then we realize that. Maybe one of the critical thing for human being is culture and art. And actually all of our co-founder loves music and also loves culture stuff. So that's why we decided that why not go into the very cultural rich place and also traditional rich place to consider the next generation of AI. So that's why that was coincidence, but we met the Go Austria program offered by Global Incubator Network. That is the, I think, subgroup of FFG, I guess. Then we joined that program, and also through that program we had a contract with Ars Electronica Future Lab, that is the research agency in Linz. Then we started to consider. At the moment, we just consider international project might be fine, but we started to consider why not going to the EU market physically, because the EU going to have an AI Act and also GDPR, and that is a very human-centric approach and a risk-based approach, and we have to be aware the ethical and the socially responsible AI development. So in Japan, it's easy for us to keep up with the information, but just the information, not practice. So if we have to truly experience socially responsible and also ethical AI development, we decided we have to be here in the EU, especially in Vienna. So that's why we decided to go to the EU first. But as a Godot organization, we also approach Southeast Asia countries to work on infectious disease prevention. And also now we are also considering going other international pathways as well. But Vienna is the first step for us.
Thank you. And how big is your office in Vienna? And
now we are a pretty small team. So, but we just founded last year, and also because I'm foreigner, so and also I have to study more about German, so that's why tons of information I have to keep up with as a managing director. But we are now trying to expand our team in Vienna, not bring our employee from Japan. We would like to hire local people here in Vienna. Yeah.
Excellent. So the next question I should address to you in German.
Ich spreche kein Deutsch.
Good. Yeah, we're, let's say, approaching the last quarter of our panel. So, as with each quarter, let's start with Taudes again. Never change the running system. Let's say the typical question that normally is on everybody's mind when you talk about the commercialization of results is obviously which barriers exist at the moment and what still needs to be done to get rid of these barriers. And for example, we will have later on in the Urban Technologies panel participants from the Austrian Institute of Technology. And they are, let's say, very generous and progressive when it comes to fostering spin-outs from the research that is conducting. But let's say this is one example in the country with 50 to 70 research institutions. So if you take the macroeconomic view, Taudes, in your experience, what would be necessary to really make this a mass movement?
Well, I think the places that I know best, of course, are universities. Clary Mangarward said, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. And the universities now have a set of performance contracts between ministries, departments and institutes. And typically there is the number of students you have to take, the number of papers that you write, the number of research proposals you write, but there's no KPI on the number of spin-offs that you make, or the number of patents that you make, or the number of joint collaborations with international startups that you make. That's why all these other support systems are in a way isolated. It would be very important to say, for example, if for the next 4 years plan, how many spin-offs are you planning to have? Because then it's on the radar. It's also on the radar of the directorate. Of course, we have a third mission. Yeah, this is teaching research, but third mission typically is you go out and make one event per semester to tell the public about the research, or you answer the phone if a journalist calls you. And that, of course, is not enough. The second point, of course, is typically research-guided innovations are farther away from the market, like other innovations that are more easy to go, and they are much more risky. And then, of course, we have the European problem that nobody finances. Recently, the OpenAI guy said, we won't make any profit the next few years, and we will burn hundreds of millions of US dollars. And everybody says, great, that's what we expected from you. Try to raise that in Europe.
Follow-up question. I 100% agree with you, especially in the AI, or let's say in general, in the digital space, this is where Europe is at the moment. But why do you think it does work in pharmaceuticals and life sciences? Because you have lots of life science companies here. I mean, just think of the COVID vaccination and so on. Vienna has a biotech cluster. You have Boehringer Ingelheim now investing, I think, close to 1 billion in the location in Vienna, plus is making an AI research lab for additionally 150 million euros. Why is this risk-taking attitude here in these sectors, but not in the digital space?
I think one reason is the patenting system. Because patenting these pharmaceutical innovations, you can also do in Europe. Pure software patents you cannot do in Europe, but you can do in the US. And the second part is this pharmaceutical stuff. It's very fragmented, right? Everybody talks about pharmaceutical, but there are hundreds of markets in a way, yeah? And in AI, basically, you have the typical network effect. One winner takes it all. And you need huge markets. And still in Europe, we don't have a single digital market. In every country, you have different rules, different things here, different things there. And of course, we have the data protection issue. This makes everything more complex. And then, of course, this is what the investors see. And anyhow, I mean, you can serve the world from the US with your bots. So why should you invest in that here?
Yeah, lots of work to be done. Maybe to you, Katagiri-san, the same question. How does software patents or IP protection work in Japan? So can you patent an AI algorithm, for example, in the way that you can do it in the United States? Or is it rather difficult? Because in Europe, sometimes it's extremely difficult. And you also have the situation that many patent offices in European countries most of the time reject AI patents, and that's why, for example, many of the companies are forced to, let's say, hand in the patent in Germany, and then from Germany make it to a European patent, which then automatically is valid to cover the entire European Union. So IP protection for AI, how does this work?
I think it's possible to patent AI technologies, but since it's still at incubating phase, so as I told you, still people are trying to share whatever they can share to advance technology. And most of the things private sectors want to close, they don't say anything about it, the know-how and things like that. Also data, what data they use. Their real applications, they just don't disclose the data. So I don't have any strong sense of patent just becoming a hindrance or barrier for AI technology development right now in Japan.
And from which sectors do you see the strongest interest? Like, is it manufacturing or life science, or is it pure software?
As long as I see GENIAC program, they are right now concentrating on business or business document processing, since it's based on LLM technologies. Even in pharmacology-related topics, they haven't yet gone into applying this foundation model technology into, say, drug development. There are lots of people, including our institute, who have been working on that topic. But before that stage, there can be lots of things that can be done with current LLM technologies to help out bioengineering researchers in terms of document searching or document summarizations, or just having a good summary of their experimental data and things like that. And I think that's the current status. And if you go into biotechnology, there are lots of possibilities, but there's also lots of big pharma in worldwide, and it's very difficult to get into that market when you are not a big companies. If you think about real drug development, it needs lots of testing before it's real deployment. So those make barriers. So I think small research people are working on particular programs on developing kind of biomaterials and try to sell those technology to other companies. So that's right now, without getting into the business by themselves. But I think that's the character of the market. And I think healthcare is also a big possibility. But I can say that right now, without getting into detail. I'm not sure. There are too many things going on in that area.
Yeah, but thanks for the insights, because I still remember the AI boom in Japan started with the self-driving cars. This was then in 2014 and 15, when Toyota opened the big autonomous research, or let's say autonomous driving R&D center in Silicon Valley, I think for $500 million. So that was really significant. Then Nissan poured money into it, but these were all let's say, manufacturing/automotive-driven innovations. And now it was interesting to hear the second wave of sectors that picked up AI and how they're going to use it. So yeah, I think we're exactly at the end of the time. So unfortunately, no closing statements anymore. But thanks for joining with us, and all of you are also still available here for the B2B meetings later on. So. Yeah, I know you are, because the bus bringing you to Graz is in the afternoon, so you're still here. Great, so thank you very much, and yeah, enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.